Hello, welcome to the DEI Consortium Lowell's Candidate Spotlight for Monday, September 13th, 2021. The DEI Consortium Lowell is a grassroots organization of community members whose mission it is to dismantle racism, amplify unheard voices, and lead impactful action for a just and equitable Lowell. My name is Sue Kim, and I am a proud resident of Lowell and co-chair of the DEI Consortium's Communications Committee. Tonight, it's my honor to host the Candidate Spotlight. The purpose of the DEI's Candidate Spotlight is to provide an opportunity for you to hear from candidates for Lowell City Council and School Committee about their track records and priorities around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tonight, we will be spotlighting two candidates, Susie Chhoun, who's running for School Committee in District 3, and Tooch who is running for City Council in District 5. Each candidate will introduce themselves briefly, then we will ask them about their thoughts on the Racism is a Public Health Crisis letter from 2020, which was signed by over 1,500 individuals and community organizations. Then we will have time for question and answer. While our focus here is on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we welcome questions of concern to you. So welcome, everyone. We're so happy to have you. It's my pleasure to introduce Susie Chhoun, who is running for School Committee.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for hosting this tonight.
So Susie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running for School Committee?
Yes, my name is Susie Chhoun, Lowell resident for over 35 years. And I've decided to run for Lowell's School Committee, District 3, which consists of the Belvedere and South Lowell. And I've decided to run because I have very actively involved in the community. And a lot of our community members have asked me in many years that I should run for office in our city. And so a little bit about myself is that I am a child of a refugee. I'm also a refugee. My family came here to the United States in 1985. We first arrived in Houston, Texas. And Texas, especially Houston, we don't have a lot of Asian community down there. So once we hear about Lowell, and Lowell has a lot of refugees coming from Cambodia. So we've decided to move over here in 1989. And we've made Lowell home since then. And, being someone who is a refugee, learning English was a very difficult thing. And, the adversity that I've been through growing up in America is that not knowing the English language, and also having to learn to assimilate to the American culture, and having to grow up both in the American customs and also in the Cambodian custom. We want to retain both, but it's really hard having to balance both American and the Cambodian culture in a sense. And again, Lowell has been very welcoming, and we all know that Lowell is known to be the melting pot in the United States. And also Lowell is also the second largest Cambodian community in the United States as well, outside of Long Beach, California. And it's an honor of my family that Lowell has welcomed us. Again, my family has been through a lot during the Cambodian genocide, the Khmer Rouge, and coming here, Lowell and the United States has given our family the opportunity to better our lives, and we grasp that, and that's why I've decided to pay it forward. And when I've decided to run, it's not because I wanted to run as a politician. I want to run as a mother. I want to run as someone who advocates for all causes that help advocate for our children, families, and our teachers. And when I see that, again, growing up and not having, being ridiculed because I couldn't speak English fluently, and and I still see that today, where we still open arms, welcome immigrants from other backgrounds, other countries, but Lowell has come a long way. United States has come a long way, and we want to continue, and we want to embrace diversity and want to continue embracing that. The languages that our family uses in their family, and I want that to be retained. I honestly did not feel like I retain the Khmer language. But so what I wanted to do now is, when I want to be an advocate for our family, you know, when teachers and families work together, our children become successful. That's one of the main reasons why. And empowering families, empowering our parents to speak up when they see something that they can advocate for their kids, and making sure that they are comfortable in their own skin, comfortable in their own language, to be able to say, hey, look, even though people would speak English, but, you know, sometimes they wanted to find someone who can actually relate to them. And, you know, and the other reason why is I want to make sure that Lowell public school system hired a diverse group of educators and faculty. You know, Lowell has been doing a great job hiring diverse staff, but we want teachers and you know, faculty that are librarians, so on and so forth, to reflect the community, to reflect the students' body inside our public school system. And again, I want to see that as well, and our families more likely to be more open up and more engaging and more susceptible to you know, be more how do you say, you know, more involved in their child's education as well. So that's one of the main reasons as to why, you know, I've decided to run as well. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. So before we turn to the questions, I would like to again revisit the letter. I'm going to share my screen. Again, in 2020, the DEI Consortium Lowell led a movement to have the city of Lowell declare racism a public health crisis, which was following many other cities and organizations across the country. And a lot of the, you know, the 5 sort of main steps were: 1, to articulate and communicate the city's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion more widely; to establish protocols for data equity and you know, across Lowell. I mean, it's very hard to know where we are if we don't have access to that clear data; to mandate ongoing anti-racist training; to establish an independent civilian advisory committee to work with the police, and to reallocate resources and establish an office of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city. So we'd love to hear sort of your thoughts and, you know, reactions to both the letter and it's what it calls for, as well as what progress the city has or has not made. I mean, where has the city come and where does it still need to go?
Sorry. Yeah, you know, I feel, yes, racism is a health crisis. And systematically, I've seen a lot in, you know, having to hire. Personally, I would like to see a lot more diverse group of members inside, not just the position in city council, school committee, but also in our city hall and our policing. And again, policing has been doing they've been hiring a more diverse group of staff, but I want to see a lot more into other sources of jobs in our city, you know, especially, you know, firefighters, and how many of that are we really looking into? And again, like you said, data is very scarce. We don't really have a lot of data to look into, but definitely I would like to see that in you know, the hiring process of, you know, city clerks or in the department DPW in that sense. You know, I want to see that. And again, that is one of the reasons as to why I believe that racism is a health crisis systematically, because the hiring process of diverse members in, you know, especially when we know that all our kids look up to these members in our city, and especially that, you know, seeing them in an office, you know, position where they can look up to. And kids, especially from my perspective as a minority, I want to see that. I want to make sure that, look, this captain or this sergeant, he looks almost like me. You know, he grew up in the, you know, the worst part of Lowell or whatever. That's what I want to see. You know, they can say, hey, look, he built himself up. And that's where I want to see, again, I wish that data are readily available for us to look into. I can't really answer a lot on that, but I know that for a fact that systematically we still need to work on hiring diverse group of leaders in our community in terms of, again, it comes from just being the clerk of the city of Lowell and up to, firefighters. And again, they're hiring a very diverse group of officers at this moment, but I want to see it in other positions in the city of Lowell. So I hope that answered your question. And it kind of, that's my view. And that's what I feel like we need to work more on. But, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. So we have a question. Could you tell us maybe a bit about your career, like what your sort of professional background is, and also maybe you can relate it to your literal background right now?
As you can see, my background. So for the last year and a half, we've taught because of COVID-19. We've been teaching at home, and so that's my background. But for me, I've been an educator 21 years this year. Being a paraprofessional or teacher assistant in Lowell Community Charter Public School. I've been doing this. I've been very passionate about working at Lowell Community Charter Public School is because their vision in seeing that the reason why, former City Councilor Chhoun and his a couple of his members decided to write this, help propose this charter to make sure that, because again, back when I was growing up in Lowell, there wasn't, we have them, but we do not merge. And so back in the 80s and 90s, Hispanic and the Cambodian community did not mesh well. And that's the reason why they decided to, hey, look, let's build a school based on a foundation of having inclusion, including different backgrounds, diverse background into a school system in which, embrace that. And that's what Lowell Community Charter Public School did. And that was the core reason as to why they decided to write that charter for LCCPS. But as a teacher assistant, I've seen firsthand how it is, our families came from very different backgrounds. Again, in the city of Lowell, in Lowell Public School System, we have 69 languages spoken in our city, in our school system. So, for me, seeing that, I want to embrace that. I want to see that. I want to continue seeing that. And, being an educator, a group of kids who I know for sure that with us embracing their differences, again, they can go further on into making our school, making our economic system thrive, make it, because once you build a strong education foundation, our kids will do so well. And you know what, for me, I am a prime example. I've been in the Lowell school system, Lowell public school system, and and that helps me because you know what, my family could not afford a prestigious private school. I was given that opportunity to get a good education, and Lowell, for me, I have a lot of teachers growing up that were very patient with me. So this is why, it's my turn to pay it forward. And by seeing that, I want to continue doing that. And that's why, I wanted to hopefully be elected to be a school committee member, because I am the voice of the voiceless. And people that are on our team and our families that are supporting our campaign right now, they believe in what the cause is, and they believe in the platform that our team has compiled together. And what I believe in resonate in a lot of our families that are in Lowell right now.
Great, thank you. I think that maybe leads into another question that has come up before, and is certainly going to come up again. What you were saying about the Lowell Community Charter School, I know that that's why a lot of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, parents send their children there, because of the emphasis on sort of a culturally diverse, sort of, student body and teachers and curriculum and things like that. But I think that, I think the whole question of charter schools in relation to public schools is a really tough one, right? I mean, there's a question of funding, but then there's also the question of how, that we have to continue putting the pressure on the public schools as well to be as sort of like, culturally and ethnically sensitive and diverse, right, as charter schools. So, I guess there's two questions there. One is, what is your sort of stance on charter schools, like, particularly in relation to sort of public funding, right, in relation to public schools? And then two, are there ways that maybe the charter schools and public schools can learn from one another, or perhaps, put pressure on one another, or, somehow collaborate in terms of increasing sort of diversity, cultural awareness in the schools across both kinds of school systems.
Mhm. I mean, a lot of misconstrued people, misleading, I guess, on the topic of charter school. Charter, again, funding goes along. I don't want to say this, don't quote me on it, but when children attend public schools, when I say public school, that includes the locally charter public school, is that the fundings go along with the students. So we're not actually taking fundings away from Lowell public school system. And I'm pro public schools because, you know what, I believe in public school. I was raised in public school, so I believe in public school. But the fact that I was very lucky to be able to be in a school, that helped motivate my career choice or motivate who I am in our community, it's just that it resonates. It tells you a lot about who I am as a person, because I mean, I have choices of going to Lowell Public School, but because this is the foundation where I started my choice as an educator, I decided to stay there. But it doesn't mean that I'm not pro public school. It's just that I want to make sure that all schools and all our children deserve the high quality education that they do deserve. And that's where a lot of people question me about the whole where I stand in charter school. And you know what? Again, I'm pro public school, and I want to see Lowell Public School. Again, I'm not looking down or anything, but I want to see collaboration. I want to make sure that both are again, charter school and public school, we need to make sure that our kids are our priority, regardless of which school their parents choose for our children to be. But putting our kids' priorities and putting their needs first is that's part of my top priority as into my platform, is that making sure our families and our children's needs are being met. I am pro teacher. I am pro, just making sure that, again, that's where I stand. Teachers, families work together, we become strong, and our kids become successful. That's just how it is. And collaborating with Lowell Public School, I'm all for it. If there's a way, I cannot answer that. If there's a way that we can work together to make sure that it's not charter school versus public school, I want to see that. Because you know what? Again, whatever fits that needs our family's priorities, I want to see that. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have another question, and I think this is something that I think a lot of people are concerned with, especially since I think the 2017 when the school system did its audit of its staff and teachers, right? That even though Lowell Public Schools are over 2/3 students of color, over 92% of teachers were white, and I know that the school Lowell Public Schools has made some headway on that front. But in terms of as a school committee candidate, right? What are some of the things, the policies, the ideas that you would promote to hire more diverse teachers?
Thank you. That's a good question. Yeah. So what it is that I wanted to see is that hiring the teachers, that not just, yes, I understand that internal hiring is the key thing that our school are doing, is hiring internal staff that qualifies. But we have to remember that someone who is educated, or let me backtrack myself a little bit. Someone who can speak a different language is a hot commodity. So are we giving? So I wanted to say this: are we giving enough of our qualified teachers or qualified candidates enough? Money is key. I'm sorry to say that, but the fundings for our teachers are keys. If they feel like if they're going to Westford and because as a minority, if they are paying a good amount of money over there, of course the person who's highly qualified will go over there. But internally, it's awesome that they're doing that, but we also need to look outside of that as well. So once you hire someone who is qualified, a well-deserved teacher internally, but let's look outside to whoever that's are applying in our lowest public schools. Like again, Are we paying them enough? Are we offering enough in order for us to sustain or retain our good qualified teachers? Because again, there are teachers that are coming from different towns, but how are we going to retain the ones that are there for the children? And again, hiring diverse teachers is a hot commodity. That's just something that's just the fact. It's the truth that give them enough incentive in order for them to say, hey, look, I'm going to look into this school system instead of just looking elsewhere. So funding is the most important thing, and giving them enough again, incentive would be nice, that's to retain. Thank you. Sorry, I hope that answered your question, but that's something how I see and I feel that needs to be addressed.
Great, thank you. So this is a question, that has come up before. Again, how I think this is important, increasingly important. How would you approach or what do you think about the issue of approaching the climate emergency, sort of climate change issues in the school curriculum? Is that something that that as a school committee member that you could address?
That's something I know that for a fact that a couple of our candidates that are running for city council have brought that up with the whole climate change and everything. Working along with, you have to realize that we have to be allies with other members that, just being a school committee member is awesome. But our focus is making sure that, you're right, having to make sure that our city council and our city school committee work together to make sure we become I guess curriculum should be rewritten, I guess, because again, this is something that's new. Climate change, actually, it's not new. I misspoke. It's always been happening, but it's very new to the general public. The thing is, how are we educating our general public as a school committee member? So I would talk to someone who's in the curriculum office in the school. That's the first and foremost that I'd say to go forward on. But the most important thing is how well educated are our families. And so by having maybe some kind of forum or some kind of education, I don't know, a function or a convention or something like it, to a forum to help our families understand that, look, this is what we need. It starts, yes, it will be implemented into the curriculum, but let's get some feedback from our families, get some input from them as to, this is what our concern is in terms of climate changes, the emergency climate changes in here. How are you, what can, having parents survey is the most important, have their input, teachers input, and then that's where we can compile it and become a curriculum. That's something fairly new that we can add on, but getting other people's opinion on how their input on it, I think that's, the most important thing is parents and teachers just get their input. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think along those lines, in terms of engaging, students and families, I really liked what you said earlier about the idea of empowering families, right? Or being a navigator for families. In the health field, they talk about health navigators, right? People who help patients navigate the health system. And I think one of the challenges across a number of constituencies is engaging parents and families, right? So what are some of the things that you as a school committee member could and would promote in terms of increasing engagement with parents and families, particularly, again, immigrants, refugees, working parents, working families, extended families? What are some of the ways that the schools could, the school committee specifically, could help those relationships be stronger?
I love that question. that goes into my ballpark. For me, I seeing that nowadays, we're in the world of technology, and having, from the experience that I've had with our families, is that the old school emailing doesn't really work, because a lot of the emails will get lost. A lot of our families don't really check their emails frequently, like someone who would have access to it. Internet is one of the issue where not all of our families have internet access. So that's the other reason why I feel like having emails is something that, yes, having that be sent out is good. That's one of phone calls nowadays. When we receive phone calls through robocall, a lot of our parents, when they see that, they think it's some kind of scam or whatever. But when they see, and then they don't often listen to their messages. And I'm glad our school are now coming up with different languages that when they're sending out messages. But again, phone call, robocalls, and emails are something that a lot of parents will not really pay attention to. But now that we have more of the apps that's happening in our school system, where we have Class Dojo, and we have, oh my goodness, what's the other one? Begin with an R, I forgot. There's one that Remind, yes, Remind, the Remind app, where teachers have access to that, and then they send that to the families. A lot of parents uses their phone now as a resource where they use it to text information back and forth. That's one of the other things that we can engage our family in. And a lot of the things where when I say engaging is that when we send kids with homework, or when there's an assignment that's due, send the parents a quick text. Parents are more susceptible to read their text messages than picking up their phone calls or checking their emails. So say, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, your child's assignment is due next week. Please make sure that you keep your child in check. This is just a very quick, easy, and you can send it not directly to, it can be like a group text where parents and teachers can text each other. And that's one of the resources that we need. And when I say engaging, it's also when our families and teachers, when our families notice that there's some changes in their students, again, texting is the most important thing that we invented. I think that's, and I want to see that, and I want to see that's happening. And language is the most important thing, where a lot of our messages are being lost in translation. And being someone like myself, I have to be a translator for my mom. We did not have the technology like today. I have to be, as a young child, my mom, she's illiterate. I'm sorry to say that, but she's illiterate. And I have to be in that. And I don't want to see that in our school. I don't want to see that in our students, especially the city of Lowell, where we should hire enough resources or hire enough staff to be able to convey the messages in their child's language. Because again, I don't want to see my students who are like myself, who had to translate. I mean, English is a language where, for myself, it was very hard to learn. And, and having to have that and see that, and again, Remind is a good app. I'm telling you, it can actually translate, even though it's not 100% accurate. But that's the resources that one of the resources that we can use in today's technology. So, I mean, there's more to that. But yes, go ahead.
That's great. I think the last question is, even though the school committee members are the school committee members for the entire city, what do you see as, you would be the school committee member from South Lowell, right? Or, from your district, right? What do you see as the primary issues in your district in terms of schools?
Again, language. In South Lowell, we have, District 3 consists of the Belvedere and South Lowell. And where my part of South Lowell is, we have a very mixed group, and getting our parents involved and get involved in our children's education it's still, I still see that, and when I say our families, it means all our families, not just the Cambodians, not just the, Hispanic, or all our families. And, a lot of our families we don't work a 9-to-5 job, how are we accommodating our families? If we want to engage our families into our children's education, how are we accommodating working families, families who work different shifts, or, we have to factor that into the issues that we have. And again, a lot of our families, language is one of the language barrier. We don't want our kids to be lost in translation, and having to accommodate, we want our families to get more involved in our meetings. How are we accommodating that? Having babysitters, or not have babysitters, I'm sorry. So when we have meetings, when we want to have meetings, provide babysitters for our children, have them bring their kids, but have someone in the building to make sure that, hey, look, we're there to make sure, put that effort into, accommodating our families. If, that's how I feel. And again, and meetings should be not a set in stone, like, oh, I want this at this time, a certain time. at 3 o'clock. A lot of our families are not here at 3 o'clock, so, do it. I understand teachers will have to work a little bit later than their actual time. But if we want to see our kids succeed in the future, we have to make as many effort and accommodation to make sure that helps them as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So Susie, we're out of time, but I just wanted to thank you so much. Let's all give a virtual Zoom applause. I applaud everyone who was running for the first time office. It is not an easy thing, and it takes courage and a lot of energy. So thank you so much, Susie.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful night.
So our second candidate tonight is I just lost. Oh, here we go. Is Tooch Van, who is, where is sorry, I just lost my my screen, who is running for City Council in District 5. I'm going to have Tooch, turn it over to Tooch, introduce himself, to tell us a little bit about himself, why he's running, some of his priorities around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then we will follow the same format of talking about the letter and then turning to questions. So, Tooch, I think he might be frozen. Oh, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for opportunity to I am Tooch Van, immigrant from Cambodia who born in 1975 when the genocide began. Khmer soldiers killed all my family members because my father was a teacher. I've left alone and moved from one family to the next to find a place to live, often physical and emotional abuse. But that process taught me survival skills and resilience. At age 15, I learned to help other children in math in exchange for food and a place to live. That process taught me again the values of hard work, determination, and resilience, and a helping hand. Through hard work and determination, I earned a scholarship to come to America. I did undergrad at Middlesex Community College and Trinity College, and master degree at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, a certificate at International Affairs at Princeton University. I came back to work in Middlesex for decades. And I moved to Lowell in 1996. I've owned a home in South Lowell for 12 years. My children play at Butler School playground. My family and I walk to get milk. On Goham Street. South Lowell is my home. I love my community dearly. So I believe that if we have opportunity to help each other out, that is the beauty that we are living. So throughout almost more than 20 years, I work out there in the community to engage them, addressing the voting access, U.S. Census counting, so that City of Lowell can have more money, vaccination access, language access, and more. One of the plaintiffs, finally I moved to Lowell to change the voting system. So the voters should know that I committed and I deliver what I promised. To become city councilor on the 5th district in South Lowell, allow me to connect South Lowell to City Hall, which something have not happened for several decades with the voice of inclusion, diversity, we can provide a better quality of life to all. I ask for your help financially and volunteers to be successful campaign. So please contact us at votetooch.com. Donate or volunteer. Together, we can provide even better South Lowell a place to live. So happen right now.
Great, thank you, Tooch.
I don't know.
So-
you have further question?
Okay, so great, thank you. So thank you for that.
The
So-
internet interrupt us a lot. Sorry, by the way.
Oh no, I mean, this goes to, we need broadband across the city. So I will just turn very quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. And again, the 2020 racism is a public health crisis letter, and the 5 points, about a clear commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, data protocols, anti-racism training, a civilian advisory committee, and an office of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on both what the city has done so far and what it can do, what more it can do, where it needs to go. Oh,
Hope to work on the DEI. I'm also on the committee, subcommittee for advocacy subcommittees. So I believe that we need to own up that the fact that the racism is a local public crisis in Lowell. And then it's like any system problems. We need to figure out how to get to the root of the cause of the crisis. Like in the letter said, to find the right treatment require a good diagnosis. So we need to have systematic barriers at the first place to start with. And I also really believe that all this, the city's employees and elected officials should get the anti-racism trainings, and then the training make it mandatory. I really believe so, and the cities as the recent HR audit, it said that it's a long way for the cities to work on to get in terms of to get in employments at the city. So we should. The city should follow the recommendations of the CLA, the CLA recommendations. So find such a way to solve these problems. We have issue to do it.
great. Thank you very much. So so we can now turn to some of the questions, some submitted beforehand and some from here tonight. I think the first question is very urgent. What would you do as a city councilor to get more city communication into different languages?
And then this is the issue that dear Chhoun. So I become a counselor. If I'm fortunate enough, one of the priorities, which is will make sure that we put some investments with different languages in and to reflect all the neighborhoods that live in Lowell. So for right now, the primary the neighborhoods that we should invest, which is Hispanics and Portuguese and Cambodian, because that's the majorities, and other language as well. If we have more funding, more investment to put on, but we have to give priorities as language is the most important. When you access to the language, you can improve a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of communications, have a better communication between the neighborhoods and the city.
Great, thank you. So we have another question. What would you do to help the City Council address the climate emergency?
Can you? The last.
The last climate change. To address the issue of climate change.
How can I help the city?
Yes.
Okay. Got it. I didn't hear the last one. Sorry about that. Yeah. I think we should we will make sure that all the emergency response and preparedness function well. So we need a broader community engagement in terms of educations about individual can be prepared. That's for example, for the issue of flooding. Flooding is one of the major issues that need to deal with in the major rivers that we and drains and sewer system that can be not always have handled capacity well. So we have to work on that area well. We also need to make sure these systems have respond to be function as well, and check on that.
Great, thank you. So another question that was submitted this year, the Community Teamwork Inc. They do a regular community needs assessment, and they found that they rank sort of the needs in the community, but through this community needs assessment, and they found that the top needs for the individual level is housing affordability, and the top need at the community level is the creation of quality, affordable housing, right? And so even though housing is something that cuts across, obviously demographics, it is something, and it's tied to class. It does disproportionately impact people of color, right? And obviously working class and low income people, right? So what are some of the ways that you could would seek to address both? I think there's two distinct questions here. One is the question of affordable housing, right? And then also the question of homelessness, right? I mean, that this is something that Lowell struggles with, right? So these are two related but distinct questions, right? One is the question of affordable housing, and one is the issue of people who are homeless.
Thanks for the question, Sue. I will target. I will let's take the first in terms of affordable housing in Lowell. Housing is one of the major issue in Lowell. The rent in South Lowell is are very expensive, and we have to work hard to address this issue. But in Lowell, we already have agencies that engage with the communities, such as CTI itself, housing department, but also the Coalition for Better Acre, um, um, CBA, is they work on this affordable housing issue. I assume that these organizations can move forward and can work with the city and work with um, um, other nonprofits to provide to have affordable housings and sustainable development for their core. That so they in my opinion they are doing and that's a very complex issue that we need to address on on my volunteer time I serve on the homeless commissions as a vice chair, so we can provide the ultimate answer will can provide a permanent place for these homeless. But we've been working with the city and nonprofit organizations to place some of homeless in the winter and in the Jameswood hotel, the hotel in Jameswood. So, but at the end, we have to look at for their alternative, which is to provide the permanent housing. But the homeless issue we have to look at as a package, a different angle, which is the drug addictions, domestic violence, PTSD, and on and on. And then these we have to look all that and then come up with a possible package to address with this issue.
Great, thank you. So a related question to that, would you consider changing zoning from single family areas to multifamily?
So I would turning in affordable housing, right?
Or zoning, right? You know, zoning from areas that only allow single family homes, right, to areas that allow sort of multifamily housing.
I hear. I apologize. I hear half of your question, Susan. I apologize.
Oh, it's in the chat too. But would you consider?
But I didn't see the chat.
Right, consider changing zoning from single family areas to multifamily. And it's a tricky question, but you know, it's something that it's really, when we're talking about housing, it's critical.
I didn't see the chat, but that's so so can I ask who asked the question? Can they elaborate a little bit? I didn't see the chat. I apologize. Okay. You can see the changing. Oh, I see the chat now. And in this I will sit down with the I will not 100% like flip side changing the zoning right away. I will sit down with the whoever sit with the on a zoning board and then to discuss and then to find out what are the possible that we can do.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Now it's a much better internet. I can see the who have a question now.
Okay. So we have another question. How do you think the city council should support the public schools?
I think they should support it because that's one of the roles of city council to make sure that Lowell public school run properly and then to equip to provide the excellent resource to our kids. So in terms of support, if we can get more grants from the federals or from the states to help our public schools in terms of fixing the buildings or provide the quality training to the teachers and so provide more incentive to the teachers to so that's the teacher will have enough skills and teaching tools to provide excellent teaching education to all our kids.
Great, thank you. So another question that has come up before for some of the city council candidates, do you have thoughts on the American Rescue Plan Act funds? So Lowell is set to receive, I forgot the exact number now, but a large amount of money for the American Rescue Plan Act. And these are funds specifically to address disparities, issues arising, from the pandemic, and that can build sustainability and capacity in the future. Do you have suggestions or ideas about what we could do with those funds to make the best use of those?
I mean, we certainly that
I think our guest is frozen. Oh no, we just lost him. Oh no, we just lost our guest. Well, we will wait for a minute to see if if his internet comes back. Does anyone else have any questions that they would like to put forth while we wait for the internet connection to revive? Okay, then, oh, here he comes. Hi, Tooch, welcome back.
It was internet, it kicked me out, and then now I'm back. So the funding, that's what my last comment is. So can I continue with the funding?
Yes, please do.
So some of the chunk of fund should provide the service to our neighborhoods, such as CBA, such CTI, and CMAA. So addressing the vaccinations access to get all the community involved to community members to just vaccinate it, and then just to make sure that we'll get a right message that the vaccine is safe, effective, and free. And then even that's a very simple message, but some community members still have some misinformation from different sources of funding. So we have to allocate some funding to the engaged organization that already engage with communities, and then do different projects, like especially canvassing, and get more community outreach people to work to get information out there to respond to the crisis.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have time for one more question. So sort of in very briefly, what are your priorities as, for the candidate, for South Lowell, for being the representative from South Lowell? What are your top two priorities?
How about I give you 8? I'm just kidding. But one of them is diversity and inclusion. We'll engage our diverse residents them to apply for openings at the city job. I really believe that if we can engage them, to provide them. So it's don't have to be on the council, but if you don't on a big council, you're just involved with the different committees, and that's one of the priorities. But the second priority is, I think, community engagement. I will hold bi-weekly meetings to listen to resident concerns and to bring their concern to the city hall, and foster all the discussions that come up with solutions in the community. So that's if I have to focus on the two, which is diversity